I hate MMOs. They're just not fun to play. They're so effing boring. The gameplay gets very repetitive very quickly. It's just way too much of a grind, and it treats a video game like a live service, which is pretty much everything I hate about modern gaming. Well, guess what? It all started with the MMO. But never mind MMOs having boring and repetitive gameplay, because you could say that about almost all the big AAA releases. But what makes MMOs especially shitty is that the gameplay is just bad. Like, you can get some satisfaction out of killing enemies in games like Destiny and Anthem, as boring as those games are, but when we're talking about MMO games like World of Warcraft, Star Wars Old Republic, or Elder Scrolls Online, the combat in these games, it's fucking atrocious. I don't know how anyone can stand it for 10 minutes, never mind pay a monthly subscription, but I have a lot of friends that do, and I do not understand why. What enjoyment could you possibly get over shitty, repetitive gameplay that just isn't fun? And speaking of shitty games that put you to sleep, ever heard of a game called Team Fortress 2? Yeah, one of the most overrated games of all time. TF2 sucks. The gameplay's just not good. The gunplay is very boring, kills are never satisfying. And even though the game is called Team Fortress 2 and it's all based on teamwork, the whole team dynamic in this game is just not good. Hero shooters like Overwatch and Paladins do it so much better. And let's be real, the community in TF2 is the most cancerous in all of video games. TF2 is just awful. It has almost no redeeming qualities in my opinion. It's just so boring. I'd rather watch paint dry than play this fucking garbage game. It's just so goddamn slow. If TF2 is the most overrated game of all time, I think Gotham City Imposters is one of the most underrated because it's a similar game to TF2 in the sense that it's a team-based, cartoony FPS, but for some reason it plays so much better. It's vastly superior to TF2 in almost every way imaginable, from the gunplay, which is just awful in TF2, to the actual variety and versatility in Gotham City Imposters, because TF2, it doesn't give you too many options, but with Gotham City Imposters, you have so many weapons and gadgets that you can choose that fundamentally change your gameplay experience each time. But TF2 is just a really bad shooter, and I just don't know how so many people love it, because to me, it's one of the most boring games I ever played. And remember, in my last episode of my unpopular gaming opinions, I said that CSGO is also a really shitty game. Valve just doesn't know how to make good FPS games for some reason. But yeah, a lot of people are shitting on me over my opinion on CSGO, trying to tell me that the game doesn't suck, I suck, and I just need to understand the game. Well, the only thing I understand is that the game is trash. But it's not that I'm just a Call of Duty fanboy and I don't appreciate tactical gameplay, because I recently got into a game called Valorant, which was in closed beta for a while, but I didn't bother, you had to watch Twitch streams or something, I couldn't be bothered with that shit, so I waited for it to be publicly released, and guess what? I found out that's actually a really good game, and it's so much better than CSGO could ever wish to be, because in Valorant, the gameplay is just so much more smooth, the gunplay actually feels satisfying. Oh, guess what? You have ADS, and CSGO does not. And when Counter-Strike originally came out in the late 90s, having no ADS was kind of a standard thing because the technology didn't really support that. But for CSGO coming out in 2012, no ADS is just pathetic. But Valorant has ADS. It also doesn't have shit spawns like CSGO does. Oh my god, CSGO has the worst spawns in gaming history. But Valorant is a really good game, and I count that as an unpopular gaming opinion because I'm pretty sure most people disagree with not only the fact that I hate CSGO, but that Valorant is just so much better, leagues beyond CSGO. I think a lot of people are going to disagree with that. So I consider that to be an unpopular opinion, but it's true. Everything bad about CSGO is not in Valorant, and everything good that CSGO does, Valorant does 10 times better. And I also love how chill the community is. Like, I've never seen such a nice community in a video game like in Valorant. Like, if I'm fucking up in CSGO, people are like, oh, you suck, fuck you. But in Valorant, people are like, that's okay, man. You'll do better next time. Like, I just love how open and welcoming the Valorant community is compared to CSGO. Overall, Valorant is just a much better experience. And that's pretty sad, considering that Valorant has only been out for, a couple months? CSGO had 8 years to fix their game, and they still haven't done it. So mark my words though, 2 years from now, Valorant is going to be one of the biggest things ever, and CSGO is going to be completely dead. And I can't wait for it to happen because I'm sick of hearing about that terrible game when games like Valorant just offer a vastly superior experience. Valorant's gameplay is just so much more responsive, it's more fun, and it's just better in every way imaginable. And speaking of better, I think the multiplayer component of Doom 2016 was much better and much more enjoyable than the single player campaign. Because as good as a single player is, after you beat it once or twice, there's really nothing else to do. So most of my enjoyment out of this game came from the multiplayer. And I have to say, Doom 2016 had one of the greatest multiplayers I've ever played, especially on PC. On console, you can only play at 60 frames per second. On a Switch, it's 30, so it's practically unplayable on those systems. But on PC, the multiplayer is fantastic, especially if you're running over 120 frames per second. Oh my god, it's smooth as hell. And the multiplayer is just great. You just have so many weapons to choose from. The maps are fantastic. The gunplay is very satisfying, especially blowing people up with rockets and their guts are just exploding. It's awesome. And when you pick up the demon rune, oh my god, getting to play as a demon is fucking awesome. And just the entire multiplayer experience is exhilarating, like nothing I've played before. I would consider this to be an unpopular opinion because people seem to think that the single player is the best thing about Doom, but it really isn't. The multiplayer is where Doom shines. I don't care what anybody says. Doom Eternal not having it automatically makes it a shit game, or at least not even being close to be worth a $60 purchase. But the Doom and id Software fanboys are among the most rabid in the entire video game community, and even though they pulled some really anti-consumer shit with Doom Eternal, people were quick to defend it, saying, oh, multiplayer, who cares about multiplayer? Even though Doom defined the entire multiplayer experience that we have today, nah, who cares about that? Even though every single Doom game before Eternal had multiplayer, oh, who cares? Well, I do, because not including it in Eternal, that's some pretty anti-consumer shit right there, and it severely diminishes the game's replayability. But Doom Eternal has multiplayer, it's called Battle Mode. Yeah, and it fucking sucks. Can't compare that to Deathmatch multiplayer and all the other game modes that we had. We had, what, 12 or 13 game modes in 2016? Yeah, I don't care how you justify it, there's no excuse for that bullshit. id Software should be ashamed of themselves, and I just don't understand why so many people defend them. It's unacceptable, and very anti-consumer. A sequel is supposed to improve upon the first game, not take away half the content from the original. So fuck Doom Eternal. And also fuck Modern Warfare. That's the worst Call of Duty game ever made. Most of the maps are fucking horrendous. They have no flow, they have terrible spawns, and they're just not fun. Piccadilly, Euphrates Bridge, Azir Cave, Petrograd, these are terrible maps. Some of the worst maps ever made in Call of Duty. Even the maps they remade from previous Call of Duties are fucking terrible. And don't get me started with the skill-based matchmaking. Oh my god, it's the worst skill-based matchmaking I've ever seen in any multiplayer game ever. I mean, I don't think skill-based matchmaking belongs in any multiplayer game, but I can tolerate it in small doses. But the skill-based matchmaking in Modern Warfare is so fucking obnoxious, to the point where every match feels like a fucking esports tournament. It's ridiculous. It rewards bad players way too much. Everyone's camping, no one's moving around, just camping in buildings with claymores. It's just terrible. There's no fun to be had with Modern Warfare. Okay, there's Warzone, but I don't really count that because I paid $60 full price for the multiplayer, and the multiplayer is fucking terrible. So, yeah, Modern Warfare is definitely the worst Call of Duty because it's not Call of Duty, it's something completely different that borrows a lot of elements from Rainbow Six Siege, Battlefield, and a lot of these tactical shooters, except with bad gameplay and bad maps. Yeah, I really hate Modern Warfare because it betrays the original Call of Duty formula. There's no run and gun in this game. You get shot from 5 different directions because it's made for campers and bad players. But it's still one of the most popular Call of Duty games in history. It's actually the most played Call of Duty, and sure, a lot of that has to do with Warzone. But even before Warzone, Modern Warfare was doing pretty well, and it seemed like a lot of people enjoyed the game. I just don't understand how anyone can like this pile of shit. Worst game in Call of Duty history, by far.